Welcome back. My name is Noah Isaacs, and on today's episode titled Silence of the Corporate Lambs. Beauville from the Journal of Business Ethics has made it clear we all know that white collar crime exists and is very present in the world, but it's highly unrepresented in crime. Not only is corporate crime an activity that takes place indoors, but one that is highly productive because of the secrecy around it. This leads us to the compelling question of why do workplace associates choose to stay silent amidst corporate crime in their company? While the moral responsibility to report misconduct may seem straightforward, speaking out hardly occurs. In this episode, I argue that corporate associates choose to remain silent due to the combination of organizational power structures, fears of career stability, and complications of legal evidence in the crime. In declaring this, I will routinely draw on the Wells Fargo 2016 bank account scandal. In this case, Wells Fargo issued for employees to illegally open bank accounts on behalf of their clients, which they would profit over these accounts. After an ongoing investigation, Wells Fargo was exposed and countless employees were found to be knowledgeable of these crimes the company was commencing, but chose not to blow the whistle despite the damage. This case strictly falls within the themes of power structures, employee career stability, and insufficient legal evidence. Firstly, I directly point to the way companies are strategically built like almost a food chain. As free from Cochrane of Oxford University, the top of the chain are the ones with the power and control everything, enforcing their own culture. And when establishing this culture, Cochrane shares that these organizations inflict a loyal mindset by encouraging the company to be family, directly pressuring employees to conform and avoid breaking any current behavior, especially about the wrongdoings. So with this power dynamic, anyone below the top individuals have to conform to the crime with this dynamic. The higher uppers use this power to intimidate and sway the associates of the company, citing speaking out hurts the family. On this note, speaking out for someone who's just an associate or any low level can be routinely pointless, not only applying to misconduct, but any affairs in the company. As Batalist from the Psychology Journal expresses, how a company builds ranks on purpose, where expressing your opinion of someone on the low level, surrounded by people who can literally fire you in an instant, might just seem like too much of an ask. This ties in with our Wells Fargo example, as the bank had strict policy where basic associates and anyone who was not on the managerial level was unable to chime in on company affairs. Arnold shares that the workers were literally powerless with their position with the scandal, as Wells Fargo had a notorious reputation of enforcing a secrecy culture that was only available to those who worked at the bank. And as to no surprise, the affair of illegally creating accounts was a prime part of the secrecy culture. Finally, structured tools such as employment contracts and non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, are frequently used to formally restrict what employees can reveal, told to us by Barnes. And the way the power structures are enforced by companies, legal work is everything, especially the legal work that makes others not be able to speak out about what's really going on. Barnes tells us companies have every right to impose NDAs or contracts on their employees, knowing that this can block anyone from speaking information, and it'll be key if you want to keep your job. Moving forward, I assert that dire consequences guide corporate associates to not blow the whistle. From the aspect of culture earlier, speaking out and basically snitching on the organization can and will blacklist anyone in the industry. Mana Pragda's experiment of laborers who work in illegal conditions show that participants have immense fear of what would come after they blow the whistle on their company's crime. In this paper, he frames this notion as suggesting it is basically career suicide. Sure, it's great that you can stop crime and bring them to justice, but there will be a lingering stigma around your name in the industry. Not even the organizations that are doing nothing illegal will want to take a chance on someone who is responsible for getting a company killed. Others expect fear of missing promotions and even getting demotions for speaking about safety concerns. So here, we can clearly see how internal policies of companies in corporate industry can effectively prevent any workplace assistant from wanting to stop crime. Back to our Wells Fargo example, not only were a significant number of the bank workers fired, but some were legally prohibited from working in banking again. On top of this, the fake bank account scheme was making these employees half of their paycheck, making them directly rely on the illegal scheme just to get by. Again, it is the evidence that the economics and fear of the career stability reinforces workers just to shut up and work while ignoring the moral and ethical dilemmas. On the more sour side, it's extremely important that I note here that some will not speak up because the crime is too profitable for them. As Nawari and Salin interviewed anonymous white-collar workers who worked within corruption, all but one associate cited they enjoyed too much of the salary and feared that this would disappear for nothing if they report the crime. As one participant even asks, "Why would I risk my own financial well-being just to save the day with no reward?" This further complements Manapragda's report, as they show economic stability comes first in everyone's mind. A sense of dependency brought on by high pay, bonuses, and benefits may make the risk of reprisals or losing one's work seem too great. Like Beauville explores, many people believe that the risk of losing a steady salary, particularly one that is dependent on years of professional growth, outweighs the moral obligation to disclose wrongdoings. This is especially true in the cutthroat fields where there are few comparable jobs and where speaking up might result in one being officially blacklisted from future possibilities. Lastly, most corporate associates who are not legal experts will routinely lack the specialized knowledge to distinguish unethical practices from criminal offenses. From the American Law Review, Bucky reports how a vast majority of the corporate associates aren't even aware of most legal boundaries their companies entangle with, as this is mostly assumed that everything is taken care of by the legal side from the lawyers. But when the same associates find out there's unconstitutional behavior in the company, they feel like their limited scope of boundaries prevents them from speaking up. With the vastly sharp and high-risk management present in companies today, Bucky talks about how these crimes are often left hidden and difficult to access in print form. Without securing confidential reporting mechanism, associates may feel trapped and powerless once again. Although not strictly active in our Wells Fargo case, it is important that the scandal did have a lifespan for about 15 years, primarily due to how well it was legally covered up and hidden below the legal documents. Because of this, the activity was not even visible on a document level to employees, but very active on a verbal standpoint. Because of this, Arnold suggests that the lack of evidence effectively silenced any legal concerns from employees, blocking them from speaking up entirely. Building on this concern, Bucky highlights that corporate associates' lack of legal literacy not only makes it difficult for them to spot wrongdoings, but also normalizes the silence. Employees may choose to take no action in order to prevent personal or professional consequences when they are uncertain whether an observed act qualifies as criminal. Hierarchical corporate organizations intensify this tendency. Even when people who suspect misconduct may consider reporting, pointless in such circumstances out of fear, reprisals, reputational harm, or professional setbacks. This eventually establishes a structural impediment to accountability, permitting immoral or unlawful conduct to continue or unchallenged. In terms of associates choosing not to speak up about internal corporate crime, these consequences extend far beyond the organization. It encourages the normalization of corporate misconduct. I believe this behavior complements our contemporary understanding of crime from a symbolic interactionist perspective, as deviance can be defined by social reaction. Corporate crimes often escape this reaction due to their invisibility and complexity elements around it, showing it to be under criminalization, white-collar crime. With conflict theory, we see insight by emphasizing how the legal system reinforces the interests of those with power. When powerless workers reveal that laws are selectively enforced and the powerful determine what they want to follow, they expose the imbalance of justice within the system. In this context, silence becomes a tool that upholds structural inequalities by protecting the individuals with more power, enabling crime. From this whole episode, one underlying aspect that directly motivates associates to not speak out is the lack of safe avenues associates have when blowing the whistle. With Kroll's report, it's seen that speaking out in a safe environment can act as vital checks in the company, leading to protecting more of the company's reputation, benefiting everyone a part of it. However, Wells Fargo's case shows attempting to report misconduct is silenced by blacklisting, harm, and career stagnation by scared associates, especially when caught. With this, a supportive reporting environment will encourage transparency, striking misconduct, and signaling a company's commitment to integrity. Overall, I'm making a call to improve the reporting environment. Protecting the whistleblower is not only a matter of individual justice, but a necessary element for responsible corporate governance that needs to improve. Back to our theories, this dynamic reveals how societal perceptions and institutional responses are unevenly distributed across different forms of deviance. For example, street crimes typically result in instant public anger and prompt legal action because they are more visible and frequently shown to be perpetrators by members of marginalized groups, like the lower social class or BIPOCs. Corporate crimes, on the other hand, are usually reframed as business conflicts or regulatory infractions, which tones down their perceived activity, even if they may be far more harmful in a scope. So conflict theory emphasizes how these definitions are not coincidental, but rather created to safeguard political and economic elites, while symbolic interactionists argue that the absence of widespread criticism permits these behaviors to continue and be accepted within elite groupings. These viewpoints demonstrate how deviance is framed through social processes that are influenced by power rather than an inherent action. In closing of this episode, Silence of the Corporate Lambs, the question of why do workplace associates choose to stay silent amidst corporate crime in their company is an extremely important topic when accounting for active white-collar crime behavior and the injustices that continue globally because of this silence. Here, I've articulated the elements of power structures, employee career stability, and insufficient legal evidence that fundamentally issues these associates not to blow the whistle, falling within the themes of the 2016 Wells Fargo bank account scandal. From this, my study has personally shown me that there's a need for reform and improvement of safe avenues for those who need a place to speak about these corporate injustices. Without these paths, company associates may never properly feel comfortable in blowing the whistle to save innocent people, and corporations could possibly be saved from being fined $3 billion like Wells Fargo. All in all, this abundance of associates not bringing illegal behaviors to light influences the media and common perception to believe this is not an ongoing issue, which is a detrimental activity that harms more than just a company's name.